Well, welcome. We have a very special guest and a world hermeneutics expert, author Peter Kling, author of the book You Can Survive Armageddon. And this being the 16th of September, and the world having gone through the Syria crisis, this seems to be a very timely topic. Would you not agree, Peter?
It's been a timely topic, Alfred, and today it's quite interesting. We had a shooting in Washington, D.C. at a naval yard, which certainly has caught the headlines. And this, you have to start to question what's going on here. They killed the gunman. There doesn't seem to be anybody else that's related to this incident. And as I'm watching this whole thing play out today, I'm wondering, Manchurian Candidate. There's very sketchy background. He's able to get through security checks, and he comes in first day on the job and does this. Interesting.
Right. And just going on the internet prior to the show, there's all sorts of videos out as to crisis actors, the same sort of actors that were, and in the same sort of uniforms that were present at the Boston Marathon. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, and here's really the sad state of affairs that we've come to. We see something like this, and since 9/11, since people have been educated that, hey, maybe it wasn't a bunch of cavemen with box cutters that brought down the World Trade Center and took out the Pentagon, all in strategic locations. Um, you know, there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye. And in the 12 years that has gone past, we've seen a lot of evidence come to light, certainly supporting a lot of theories. There's just too many coincidences that have gone on, which all of a sudden have come to light to say, oh, well, this was just done as a terrorist plot. No, there's more to this than meets the eye. And since then, become a lot more we've given a lot more scrutiny to the things that are being presented to us. And I use the word presented to us because we're expected to believe this. And the Boston bombing event was really a red herring in several aspects. Never before did the news reels start off, and I say reels kind of because we just watch this stuff over and over again. But the first footage coming out of the Boston bombing was an interview with people who said that they had heard that there was an announcement that they were holding a drill just before the explosions went off. So, and one of them happens to be a college professor. These aren't people that are just hearsay, oh, well, we said that we heard this too. No, this gentleman was interviewed on national news. And that's what he said. The whole city of Boston went on went under voluntary martial law because they were looking for an 18-year-old boy. What doesn't add up about this? They're chasing down an 18-year-old kid, and they put the whole city of Boston on essentially voluntary martial law. There was a request by the governor to sequester in place, and almost every government agency, from the local police department right on up to the National Guard, were hunting down, doing illegal door-to-door searches, looking for an 18-year-old kid. This is a drill that was taken live, and it was practiced out. It was very successful. They actually went door to door. They invaded people's homes, all under the guise of looking for an 18-year-old terrorist. So, now we have to really question everything. They told us it was a drill. Now we have this unknown shooter. His sketchy is very past. I mean, his past is very sketchy in the fact that nobody really knows where he came from, and he's been killed, and so they can't question him, and he seems to be the only one, first day on his job in this naval yard, shooting up the place. It raises a lot of questions here again. And so now you start seeing the same actors. And folks, if you think that these may not be actors, think about the possibility that they may be, because you can go online and you can volunteer to be a crisis actor yourself. Yeah. Something to think about. So you can participate in one of these drills, and when you become good enough, if Hollywood doesn't accept you, maybe you have a future as a crisis actor. I don't know. It certainly does seem that way. You see the same faces showing up time and time again, so it seems. So it raises, without a doubt, a red flag into the time in which we live and what is actually going on and why we have to be preparing for something, because obviously the government is preparing for something and they're training for it.
Now, what we're going to be addressing in our interview today, Peter, is from your book, You Can Survive Armageddon, and your use of biblical interpretation, hermeneutics, to really come up with a novel interpretation of what Armageddon is about. Now, having said that, since we started this conversation in a discussion about false flags, do you think that Armageddon could be defined as the mother of all false flags?
No, but we actually might be facing the mother of all false flags right now with Comet Ison.
Uh-huh.
You know, I want everybody to think about Comet Elenin, a speck of dust that traveled through our solar system that you needed equipment to see. And interestingly enough, on every alignment, there seems to have been a major earthquake, including the Fukushima earthquake, which indeed, a lot of people, I'm going to predicate this, Elenin was believed to be an extinction level event. Well, Fukushima, where there is some evidence or considerable amount of evidence of possible human involvement, aka weapons like HARP and tsunami bombs, Fukushima certainly is an extinction level event. It has been allowed to burn 3 reactors in total meltdown, in the China syndrome total meltdown, to the point now where the Japanese government realizes that if they don't do something, that they are totally lost as a people and will probably have to vacate their own island. And what their proposed idea is to freeze the area around the reactors. Why don't you go freeze the sun? It'd be easier. You know, and Chernobyl is still in meltdown. People don't realize that. And here brings a biblical prophecy. It's the, quote, the wormwood prophecy, which everybody is being attached to, quote, Planet X or Nibiru. No, there's another prophecy for that. As a matter of fact, there's about 5 other prophecies for that. But wormwood, interestingly enough, and this is from Revelation chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. And it says that a star falls to earth and it poisons the rivers and the fountains. Now, 2,000 years ago, where did you get your drinking water from? The rivers and the fountains. We still get them from there today. Of course, now we have big reservoirs to help back it up. However, when you read the account of what happens, this star wormwood poisons the river and the fountains, the drinking water supply, and makes them bitter, and the men who drink from them become ill, sick, and die. And we have seen Fukushima pollute the whole northern hemisphere and into the southern hemisphere to the point where people are getting sick and dying.
Right.
You know, if that isn't biblical, I don't know what is. And they're finally figuring out after 2.5 years that they have to do something about it. Now, here's the interesting thing. You pronounce wormwood in Russian as Chernobyl. You know, maybe that plant didn't right from the beginning. But here we've got essentially at least 3, 4 reactors, maybe 5 reactors in total nuclear meltdown. Russia was smart enough to plug theirs over, at least cap it. It's still leaking. Now they're building a dome over it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's a biblical prophecy that's been fulfilled. And it's going on still being fulfilled. And it has now brought us to the point of essentially total annihilation if it's not with soon. Only the experts say that in order to deal with it, it's going to take them 30 years at least to invent the technology. Oh, well, good thing there's the 2045 initiative that they've put forward, the transhumanism initiative from human to machine. So that's their way out of all this, to cause the biological extinction of the human race one way or another.
Exactly. Well, now getting to Armageddon here.
Okay.
Okay. Let's set the stage, because there are a whole series of entities or of concepts or constructs. There's the great dragon, the seven-headed, 10-horned beast, the two-horned beast, the image of the wild beast. There's the Antichrist. There's the Lamb of God. There's the 5 signs that we're heading toward Armageddon. There's the Great Tribulation. Could you walk us through all of this? And is this applicable to what we're undergoing now? That is, do you think that this is an actual scenario, or are we on a timeline where this is not going to occur? Like they tried to get a Syria attack going, but because of the timeline, we were able to kind of shuffle that off.
For the time being, misdirection for bigger and better things to come.
Okay.
You know, Shakespeare said the whole world's a stage, but let's take a look at these beasts that are involved and kind of where this story starts, because you need real history in order to back any of this up and make any kind of sense of what is going on. Without that, it's just, some nice biblical story. You kind of have to find the evidence that fits the glove, you know, and if it doesn't fit the glove good enough, obviously you can get away with murder. The story really starts back at the Cambrian period, but we're not going to go back that far. But I just want to touch. Science has no explanation on where Earth got all the genetic information that brought on the Cambrian period, because there was more life on this planet during the Cambrian period, which was 500 million years ago, than has ever been on this planet since. There's only less life. So where did it all come from? And we can look at the extinction level events to see where it all went and kind of how it changed. But the first question, where did all this life come from? Where did all the DNA come from? Science doesn't have an explanation for it. So the oxygen levels hit that level, that point, and now life's spontaneously combusted. So we have to bring in a higher, more intelligent entity into this situation. Genetic engineering would certainly explain where all the variety of life came from, wouldn't it? Somebody visiting this planet, bringing lots and lots of DNA, knowing how to manipulate it, and bringing the planet to the point of where it is kind of now, or at least maybe a few thousand years ago. And then you get to the biblical story, which, interestingly enough, when you look at it with the correct information, Genesis mirrors what basically happened after the Big Bang. So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, that's been considered to be the Big Bang, the start of the existence of the third dimension. Now, there's an interesting thing about living in the third dimension. According to, for us to exist, there needs to be 7 other spatial planes which have to be there, or we could not be here. That's just the way string theory or superstring theory works. And the other thing is, those 7 spatial planes, those other 7 dimensions, can get along just fine without these 3 physical dimensions. We depend on them. And to think life started in these 3 physical dimensions probably isn't the best idea or the most accurate idea, considering that there was another 7 dimensions that existed who knows how long before these 3 came into existence. And we count everything in Earth years and think it applies across the time, dimension, and space. It doesn't. So to think that life only existed, at one time life only existed on this planet. And then we came to accept the gods. At least our ancestors did. And now we accept that there are alien life forms involved in this situation. Could they have been the genetic engineers of Earth to begin with? Evidence would probably prove yes, it would, or at least it gives us a strong suspicion, considering that both the biblical record and the Sumerian record follow the same thing. The Anunnaki say, hey, we genetically engineered you guys. You go back to the biblical record, it's a little bit different. When you look at Genesis, the 2nd chapter, it says that man was created out of the elements of the earth, out of the dust of the ground. But woman was clearly genetically engineered from man, because a tissue sample was taken from man, and it says that God closed over the flesh and he created a woman. And he brought the woman to the man, and the man said, at last, this is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. This one was taken from man. I shall call her woman. She's my sister. She's my clone. That's pretty much exactly what it was, and Adam knew it. So who did the cloning? Interesting thing. There's also this reptile, this serpent, doesn't say a snake, it says a serpent, that kind of botches the whole thing up and destroys the perfect DNA by fooling the first human genetically perfect couple on the planet to eat this fruit that would destroy their DNA. Possibly. At least that's how the story goes. The Sumerian story just says basically that the gods, the Anunnaki, came to Earth and genetically engineered us from lower life forms, which would, there's genetic engineers involved one way or the other, regardless of what story you go to. But we have this serpent. Now, go all the way from Genesis, and I want to stop at one other spot first. Go to Genesis 3:15. This is the first prophecy of the scriptures. And this is after they ate the fruit, whatever that exactly was. But the prophecy is, and this is God speaking to the serpent. He says, I shall put enmity between your seed and the woman's seed, and between and her seed will bruise your seed in the head, and you will bruise him in the heel. But he talks about these 2 seeds, the woman's seed and the serpent's seed. Now, let's start tracking those throughout history. Through the serpent seed, we have the story that comes down out of Babylon, or actually out of Samaria, starting with the Tower of Babel and being tracked down through the world powers. Next, really, we get the story that starts with Egypt and the Exodus. But religion, almost all of world's religions, can be traced directly back to the teachings that started on the plains of Samaria with what we are told is the start of civilization. Interestingly enough, the, quote, Anunnaki, who are supposed to be coming back along with Comet Ison sometime, or Nibiru, whichever person you wish to believe, they gave us government and religion to start with to control the people. So we have an extraterrestrial, an alien force involved in this whole thing right from the start in both the biblical scriptures and the Sumerian texts. And the story is into because the story of both the serpent seed and the woman's seed. The story of the woman's seed comes through the scriptures. The story of the serpent seed comes through the Sumerian texts and the different world powers, through the gods that are still worshipped today by the elite who believe that they have the God-given right to rule this planet. Now, you have to question, why has the elite been in a closed community where their mates are chosen for them, and it's essentially family members who seem to be chosen the most? And this has been throughout history, right back to the days of Egypt and all of the sibling rivalry. It's the serpent or reptilian seed killing each other for power. So let's take it fast forward into Revelation. Revelation 12 gives us some interesting information. It says that war broke out in heaven, and the war was between the great dragon and Michael. And it says that the dragon and its angels fought, but it did not prevail against Michael and his angels. And there was neither a place for them in heaven. Let's see, there's 7 other dimensions that are needed for us to be here. There was not a place for them found in heaven any longer, so down to the earth they were cast. And then there is the warning given to the earth: woe to the earth, for he has been cast down to you, that is, which of is Satan or the devil, having great anger. But who was the war with? The great dragon. How many civilizations on the planet have dragon law legends? Oh, yeah, all of them. What can I say? Where did they get that idea from? Maybe the Anunnaki in Sumeria? Maybe the serpent in the story of Eden? But there's no doubt they are with us today and influencing the situation. So, when were they cast down? The historical record will tell us that there have been 2 dates in the last 100 years which seems to have changed history. That being the date of 1914 and the date of September 11th, 2001. In Revelation, we have a really interesting connection, because when you go back almost 100 years ago, 99 years ago, we had a world war break out in Europe. Now, interestingly enough, after the start of the 20th century, up at around the year 1914, almost all of the what we would call the darker places on the earth had been colonized by European royalty, by the nations of Europe. So between the land that, all the land that was colonized around the world, essentially those same nations being involved in a war in Europe put that war around the globe, because all of their little colonies were now at war with each other. And you don't hear so much about that as you do the main focus in Europe during World War I. But a very interesting thing happens. In 1909, I believe it was, the Wright brothers flew a plane the distance of the wingspan of a 747. And 60 years later, we allegedly put a man on the moon. Where'd all that technology come from? When you look at the last 100 years, there has been an explosion of technology on this planet have never been here before in the previous 6,000 years of recorded history. Now, I don't know what happened to the Library of Alexandria. There's a good chance it's under the Vatican somewhere. But whatever is contained in that library might equal the advancement if you could turn around and publish it all. But somehow in the last 100 years, we went from not being able to fly an airplane more than a few hundred feet to putting space shuttles and satellites and orbiters into space, and to create weapon systems in space, and to do who knows what, the black ops budget in space. We don't know. Henry Kissinger said we had advanced weaponry that no other country would have, and that at the right time it would be unleashed. What can I say? That's coming from the man who put China into the 21st century. So we have this dragon power which seems to have enveloped the earth. And it's been war after war after war since World War I. So we have a change in paradigm. What we get out of the sea of turmoil of World War I is this beast which comes on the scene. It comes out of the sea, the unstable elements. Now, here's the thing. Whenever a beast is mentioned within the scriptures, it's always tied back, or seems to be almost always tied back, into a world power or into a government. If I said the bald eagle, which government would you tie that into? If I said the great bear, where would you go? If I said the lion, you would go, no doubt, to England, which brings us into this story as well, but a little bit later on. So here, at the end of World War I, we have the formation of the League of Nations. Now, how did this come about? In order to get the answer, you have to really go back to 100 years prior to that in the Napoleonic Wars and look at who was financing the Napoleonic Wars and who had the most to gain at the result. And when you do that history checking, you find out that both sides were being played by the Rothschilds family and the five brothers. They were able to capture the economy of the English government, the French government, and the German government, all through the efforts of Napoleon. Interesting. And so they've been doing such ever since, financing wars, both sides, keeping the war machine going and making their pockets deeper and more full. And when you get to the War of 1812, a lot of people don't have a clue why 1812 started. It was started because the Rothschild Bank didn't get its charter. The War of 1812 started in 1815, and in 1816 the Rothschilds got its charter again. They were thrown out by Hamilton. You get to the 20th century, and Woodrow Wilson, who was also being blackmailed at the time, lets the Rothschild Federal Reserve back. So we have this beast element, which is now starting to take over and expand. When you look at the beast itself, it has 7 heads, one for each of the world powers, Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and the Anglo-American dual world power. Between England and the United States, they've controlled the world pretty much for the last 250 years or so. And the United States has grown into the superpower it is today. However, after World War I with the League of Nations, the United States didn't want to have any part of it. They viewed it as an English or as a European club, and we just got our nose bloodied by World War I. So even though Woodrow Wilson wrote the charter for the League of Nations, he couldn't get Congress to verify it, and so the United States never joined. Well, okay, don't have the potential of the world's greatest power under control yet, but we'll get there. We have the banking system. And so then we go into the Depression, and then we go into the gold scandal of 1933, where it becomes illegal for the people of the United States to own gold by the swipe of a pen of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Huh. What other president have you heard has changed the laws by the swipe of a pen? Real recent, a lot of them, especially the one that says what you own, we own. Anyway, it's now illegal for the Americans to own gold, and so the Rothschild family, through the Federal Reserve Bank and the Treasury Department, and no doubt the Roosevelt family's Bank of New York was involved as well, bought up $380 billion worth of gold at the cost of $20.67 an ounce. A year later, FDR signs another one of those sheets, and gold's price goes up to $35 an ounce, and you get 40% profit overnight just by the swipe of a pen. Great investment. Unfortunately, the people of the United States no longer have gold, nor can they trade in gold, nor can you settle debts in gold, and we got put on this fiat currency that has been milking us dry ever since. So we have this beast-like power, which has got these 7 heads, so all the world powers are there. We look at the 10 diadems, or the 10 horns, I should say, on this beast, and we have all of the major playing cities. There are two horns. Rome gets 2 because of Constantinople and Rome itself. The Persians and the Medes get 2 horns, and the United States and Great Britain get 2 horns as part of this composite beast. Now, when you read the account in Revelation, it says that this beast gets a death stroke, and it looks like it's going to die, and we get World War II. And the world is at war again, and at the end of World War II, we get Operation Paperclip and the United Nations. It comes back even stronger. And interestingly enough, we also get the creation of a 2-horned beast, which pretends to be a lamb of peace, but speaks like a dragon and can even call fire down from the heavens, as in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and many other places around the world in testing nuclear warfare. A little bit obvious. And this 2-horned beast makes an image to the first beast, and it breathes life into it. And the image, which has also got 7 heads and 10 horns, comes to life and puts everyone under compulsion to serve it. And those who do not serve it, it kills. And so we get the New World Order method of doing things. And so we get training exercises so that the authorities and those who are subject in the militia get to do door searches and practice. We get ready for what is yet to come. And so now this image of the beast forces everyone to take its mark, and whoever doesn't take its mark, they can neither buy nor sell. And the mark is a man's number, the number 666. Well, here's the situation. If you look at a UPC code, as a matter of fact, if you look at a UPC code, I'm going to hold this up. I don't know how well it'll show, but if you look at the first 2 lines, the middle 2 lines, and the last 2 lines, they're all the same. Now, back when UPC codes first came out, they used to actually print 666 under those 3 lines, but today those lines are extended a little bit and there's no more number associated with them. So in order to buy and sell on today's market, you need a UPC code. Ding, ding, put it through a computer. This way Kraft knows to make you another box of macaroni and cheese at the end of the day. It also tells my publisher, hey, make more of this book. Send it out. That's how the world runs now, by this little code that they stamp, which has got the mark 666. And if you don't have that mark, you can't buy or sell. But what about on a personal level? RFID chips come to mind, and Henry Kissinger did say, control the food, control people in a time of disaster. If you're not prepared, where do you have to go for your food? Chances are you'll wind up going to your local Walmart store, considering they are already approved by FEMA to be disaster relief centers. So you can go get your government cheese and your chip, and we'll see you tomorrow. So, it's all a manipulation. It's what you are doing. And so now you create this, quote, antichrist figure. Now, let's look at the number again, 666. I know I've seen this in a symbol. It seems to be a 6-sided star with 6 pyramids and 6 points. It seems to be also tied into a god called Molech. And if you look at the star of Molech, you will find, or the star of Raphan, it's actually 2 different names. Molech is technically a title. You will find that star that has 6 sides and 6 points and 6 pyramids. And so now you have to question what is going on here. Now, the first god, quote, god that was given the title Molech was the Egyptian god Set, who required live child sacrifice at his homosexual orgies. So makes you wonder which God the church is worshiping today, considering the child molestation situation that's gone on, along with the missing children. You know, it makes us have to think and ask some very somber questions about the world in which we live. And if anybody doesn't understand this, they should go look up the work of Kevin Annett and look into what the courts of Brussels have done. The people have spoken. They're tired of being molested and having our children molested and being used as lab rats. We've had enough of the elite, the reptilians, who do not care about us one way or the other, whose bloodlines they've kept pure through interbreeding all the way back to the time of Egypt and before. Now, anybody who thinks that these people are compassionate is insane, because they are the ones who have financed the wars that have caused more than a billion deaths during the 20th century. Not just directly by war, but by wars and problems caused by war. And indeed, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of the advanced technology that has been given to us has been all used in destroying the human race. All weapons of war, to the point that the atomic war arms buildup got to the point of being 20,000 pounds of 20,000 tons of TNT for every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth. How's that for killing power? Let's do it slowly. We've got Fukushima with us now. So you look at the biblical prophecies, and you have to say, something is going on here. And you cannot understand the biblical religion. You can't do it. Einstein said it himself. Einstein said that science without religion is lame, but religion without science is blind. Maybe that's why they put up the observatory Lucifer, the largest infrared observatory on the planet. Maybe they're looking for their God to return. That's what the Mayans said was going to happen in the new Baktun. Interestingly enough, we have been invaded by aliens before. There's a little side note. 5,125 years ago was the beginning of the previous Mayan long count Baktun. It is also a time period recorded in the scriptures as a time when mankind grew in number on the face of the planet. And the women were seen as beautiful by the sons of the true God. And they went on taking wives for themselves, all whom they chose, and they went creating the Nephilim. Giants, fellers of men is how Nephilim actually translates. But to get the real account, you need to look at the account in the book of Enoch. Best science fiction novel in the whole world. Couldn't be better than the book of Enoch, because in the book of Enoch, you find out that we're dealing with interdimensional beings, some of which have the capability of transforming from energy into a human form and fathering hybrid children, which grow to be giants and start destroying the earth. It's there. We've been invaded. Now, before, in history, explain where the pyramids came from. Explain where these cities come from that look like you need beyond modern technology to build, high in the Andes or within the depths of the ocean as they're now finding them. Where did that technology come from? They were driven off the planet. Some of them were captured and put into a place that is called Tartarus. We know it best by Greek mythology, but a god rules Tartarus, interestingly enough. The land of the dead, the world of the underground. But we're dealing with interdimensional beings, and boy, if you want a really good science fiction thriller, read the book of Enoch. It's great. And if it's true, both good and bad. You know, we've got some trials and tribulations to get through, but hey, it ends in a very positive note. And interestingly enough, We see some of those things happening that are recorded within the book of Enoch, but more so recorded within the scriptures themselves. What things are they? We can start looking at them. Wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in one place after another. Since 1998, earthquakes have increased over 700%. Fukushima wasn't just one earthquake. By the time it settled down, about 5.5, 6 months later, over 17,000 quakes went off. I was following them on a daily basis. The one that we had in China back in, toward the end of April, that 7.2, I think it was recorded as, that earthquake wasn't one earthquake. It was over 4,000 earthquakes. How do you get 4,000 earthquakes on one occurrence within a week in one location? What's going on here? You know, tell me this is normal. And it seems to be getting worse and worse as time goes on, as we're getting closer into this paradigm change, if we can call it that. The next piece, where were we? Should we go? Let's go into the Antichrist, because we get into the Antichrist here a little bit with the image of the wall. This is the New World Order that we may actually be facing the introduction to, contained within a false flag attack within Comet Ison. Let's visit Comet Ison for a second. Ison, that was first reported about a year ago, a little bit longer. It was said that it was going to be a once-in-a-civilization's lifetime event, that it would lighten up the night sky 5 times brighter than the moon. We would see it during the day. You know, nobody saw Comet Elenin, but everybody on this planet's supposed to be seeing Comet Ison, and they can't keep it hidden. So let's see. If you can't hide an elephant in the room, what do? Clear the room. It gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want with the elephant. You know, it's going to be around for a month. Essentially, we should be seeing it pretty much every night for about 2 weeks straight. But, and that's on its, I guess, as it's starting to approach the sun, we should see it. But when it comes around, we're essentially going to be looking right into its tail, unless something happens to change a trajectory. And they're already saying, oh, well, Comet Ison's actually a biosphere with living organisms in it. It might be the Anunnaki coming back. It's some sort of spacecraft. Anything but it's a regular comet that's coming by. So now you have to raise questions. Okay, what's the psyops on Comet Ison? Why is FEMA Area 3 ordering all these supplies into it? Why have they given all these mandates to that different drills have to be carried out? Interesting word on this day, all these different drills have to be carried out before the 1st of October or on or by the 29th of September. In FEMA Area number 3, which is Washington, D.C., and the surrounding states, what are they expecting? Why has Homeland Security and FEMA bought hundreds of millions of rounds of ammunition? Why does almost every government agency require to carry arms? They all have their armor division, their police division, their law enforcement division, regardless of who they are. It seems like whoever they are, they're trained with a gun and say, "Here, carry this." And you don't hear anything about them lead out. Okay, Syria's over, go back to sleep. You know, what deal was cut behind getting to Syria? Now the UN is coming out and saying, oh, it was poison gas. So we have this exercising of false flag attacks, disinformation, total misdirection on really what's at hand. And Alfred, if I just believed everything for what it was, I'd be going crazy. Seriously. But I moderate everything by what's written in the scriptures to the events that I'm seeing unfold on the face of the planet. And that's one of the things that Jesus said. Follow or watch the olive tree. He says, brothers, I don't have to tell you. You know what's going to happen. You know what the signs are. He said, just follow the olive tree. When it starts to come into bud, you know what time of the year it is. Follow world events. Okay, most of them are fabricated. But it's hard to fabricate. Now, I shouldn't say it's not hard to fabricate a earthquake. They've done it lots of times before. But hey, wait, why are they doing it? Look at the events that we're seeing in Colorado right now. Boulder seems to be being washed away. How did that happen? Isn't there some sort of a climate summit that's supposed to be held there next month? You know, too many things are just being manipulated. And when they can manipulate the weather and they can manipulate the earth, interesting. I was watching a documentary on Saturday, I believe it was, and then they replayed it on Sunday, so I saw the whole thing 1.5 times, and it was all on HAARP and the capabilities of what HAARP has, and this was being put out on the cable TV channel that goes out to the public. They're not hiding what the capabilities are of HAARP anymore. They're publicizing them. Why would they do that unless it was too late? Why would they why would they give us time to react unless there wasn't time to react? You see, you have to start seeing what they're not saying or listening to what they're not saying. Instead of buying the message, you look at what the parameters of the message are. And then we start to understand more what they're talking about. They're never going to tell us the truth anyway. It's Washington. It's politics. You want truth? Go to Hollywood. You know? Seriously, you go to Hollywood and you'll find truth. They're telling us all the time we're going to be invaded by aliens. Oh, the official policy is that aliens do not exist. What, are you kidding us? The Russian premier slipped in a comment he recently made saying that the president of Russia is required to carry 2 things, a suitcase nuke and 2 folders with all of the alien information in it. What? Yeah. Now, if that's what, and this is the guy that would have the job. He was doing it. He would know. And he let it slip out and it was reported. Now, if that's accurate, if that's real true information, what does that tell you? I got the nuke codes here. I got the alien codes here. What do you want to do? It's my boys against your boys. It's my entities against your entities. You see, it's my aliens against your aliens. And not quite. That's the tail wagging the dog. You go to, I love the scripture. You go to Daniel, the 10th chapter. Gabriel shows up on the scene. He says, "Hey, Daniel, I'm sorry I'm late. I've been fighting the Prince of Persia for the last 3 weeks. I had to go get Michael, the foremost one of you people, to come and help so I could deliver the message. So here's your message. Okay, I got to go. I got to go back and fight the Prince of Persia. And look, the Prince of Greece is coming." Now, Gabriel was an extraterrestrial life form who had privilege of being mentioned in the scriptures not just once, but twice, because he also announced the artificial insemination of the young Hebrew girl, Mary. Hey, guess who got you pregnant last night? Yeah. So now we've got a perfect DNA model that is put here on the planet by somebody who's got the technology to do artificial insemination and have someone show up from outside the 3rd dimension saying, "Hey, by the way, guess what? You're pregnant, sweetie. See ya." And so then you get the Gospels, which give you some very interesting accounts. Hey, this man Jesus could turn water into wine. He can make the blind see. He could cure the lame. He cured lepers. He fed thousands with leftovers. I was going to say scraps, but they were leftovers. And then we turned around and nailed him to a tree. Oh, wasn't that brilliant? The man could walk on water, so the accounts say, and we nailed him to a hunk of wood. Take that, God. We just killed your son. Yeah. Makes you wonder how this planet has existed as long as it has, Alfred. It really does. It makes you wonder how it got this far. And people look at the Bible and they say, "Oh, it's just a bunch of funny stories. It's been changed. It's not accurate. It does." No, wait a minute. What you're reading is a book that has been taken by the church, had the name of God removed from it, whichever version of the name that you want to choose, As I was told by a Hebrew scholar, Yahuwah is the closest pronunciation to the Tetragrammaton, but they took it out of the Bible over 7,000 times, so you couldn't say, Yahuwah save me. Which seems to be a requirement, knowing God's name or being able to put us into that vibration that it takes for that to be activated. So, yeah, the Bible was manipulated a little bit, but hey, wait a minute. If you're going to use religion to study the Bible, you're in trouble. Einstein said, you're blind. You can't do it. Religion doesn't teach genetic engineering. Religion isn't going to teach alien invasion. Let's look at it from the scientific viewpoint. When could we possibly have understood that Genesis, the 2nd chapter and the 21st verse, was genetic engineering? 100 years ago? Nope. I had no clue what DNA was. We didn't discover DNA until the 1950s. And then we discovered we can manipulate it in the 60s, and the scientists who figured that out met around the world to set up the parameters so we don't make abominable Crimeas, half human and half something else floating around this earth, which is exactly what they've done through genetic engineering. We have gotten to the point where we are playing God with the human genome. Isn't that nice? But that's okay, not a problem, because we also have plans to wipe out the biological humans anyway. That's the wrong paradigm. This paradigm, which was started by a reptile, by a serpent 6,000 years ago, and got seriously enhanced over the last 100 years to where the point of this planet is certainly under the control of some sort of satanic, demonic, Luciferian force. The people want peace. Hey, we got peace a little bit in Syria. Of course, the United States comes along and says, well, the CIA is now openly funding the rebels. So, yeah, good luck with that chemical weapons idea. We'll just ship more of the conventional stuff in, and you'll be overthrown, just like what happened in every Arabic state from Sunni right around to, Syria. They're all gone. All of the regimes disappeared over the last 200 years. Assad is the last holdout. Got to go, buddy. Sorry. Been predetermined. You should have stepped down 2 years ago. But that's really where it's at. And they're not going to stop until he's gone. He should have taken a lesson from Gaddafi and said, hey, I'm going to Bora Bora. Take care. That's my personal opinion. But so he's got a world of hurt coming on him if he doesn't change his position real quick. However, he's got Russia to back him up, and it may all become a moot point here based on what they decide to do with Comet Ison. So let's look at the Antichrist here. The Antichrist isn't one person. It's an Antichrist system, because you can look at the government and it's an Antichrist system. You can look at the church and it's an Antichrist system. You can look at what is going on among the royals themselves and say they are a part of an Antichrist system as well. And all part of a plot to get into this one world order to take total control over everyone's lives. Everybody gets chipped. Everybody gets inventoried. You all got social security numbers here in the United States, so we can keep track of you. You're part of the system. Now we just need your DNA, and we can microchip you, and we'll have full dossiers on you, and we can track you from now until eternity and your children, all right, up until the point where you're biologically exterminated, which isn't probably going to take all that long under this paradigm. Now, what other things are we facing? It's difficult to say what'll happen with Comet Ison. We've seen the capability of false flag attacks already. Comet Ison gives them a perfect opportunity. Hey, Comet Ison did it. Remember years ago, there used to be a comedian, Flip Wilson. He used to play this one, or he had this one little key punchline. The devil made me do it. Comet Ison made me do it. You know, you've got a secret military spacecraft. What is the XB-37, which can go up and out around the Earth's orbit, and do whatever it wants to do to whatever satellites are up there and push them right to wherever they want, into the ocean or onto land, wherever the case might be. Ocean would be preferred to create a coastal event, and that could be done at any time. They can collapse the dollar just by setting off some sort of device in Washington. Maybe today was a dry run for something that'll put us on lockdown. Who knows? They could release a biological, anything. That we've heard so much about H7 or H1N1, that there's so many mutant varieties of that, you can no longer keep up with all the different brands of HN virus that they've released upon this planet. And then we can talk about chemtrails, another biblical prophecy come true. Revelation 8, 11, and 12. A third of the sky it's verse 12. A third of the sky shall be darkened, essentially. It says a third of the sun, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars shall be darkened. And they shall no longer give their light. And chemtrails darken approximately 28% of the sky. So there's another one. Now, what are they darkening those skies with? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't have a clue. Aluminum seems to be a big part of it, to reflect the sun's rays back. Now, why would they have to reflect the sun's rays back? You ever remember being out in the sun about 10 years ago, Alfred, maybe even 5 years ago? You know, you're getting a little tan at the beach or something, you know, and you put a little sunscreen on, and you can lay there for quite some time before the sun starts to sting. I live in the area of northern Pennsylvania, and I noticed that this summer, about 30 seconds, my skin started to sting. Not burn, sting. I've never quite felt the sun beat down on me like that before. Okay. Maybe they didn't get their enough chemtrails up to reflect that sunlight back, and it makes me wonder what has happened or what is happening to the magnetic shield that is around planet Earth. Is it flipping? Is it changing from one side to the other? Are we going to see this happen? All indications that something's going on, and that it has done it several times in the past, and it looks like it might be doing it again. How is this going to affect us? I don't know. But all of this is puts us all in a state of flux, to a point where something has to give. Something needs to go askew, because this is like being on board the Titanic and not having an escape plan. And guess what? We're inches away from the iceberg.
Well, yeah.
You know, regardless of how you look at it.
Well, I'm looking here at page 319 of your book, and it says 5 signs leading to Armageddon. He says there are 5 signs told to us that must happen before the battle of Armageddon. 1. The nations must declare peace and security. 2. The one world government, the 8th king, I guess that's the one world government, must be established. 3. Religion as we know it will be destroyed by the one world government. 4. A great tribulation breaks out worldwide, which, if not halted, could destroy all people alive. And 5. Evidence in the heavens of the coming battle of Armageddon, most likely a comet, and it will hit the earth. Okay, so could you run through the? It seems like we're not quite there yet. We're sort of. If we're headed down this path, we're not anywhere near there yet.
No, absolutely, I agree. I absolutely agree. We're getting set up for it yet. That's what makes Comet Ison such an interesting factor, because if they can collapse the system off of Comet Ison, they can pull any false flag attack they want, collapse the dollar, put us into this bad situation. Let's go back to the protocol for a minute. If you read what it says in the protocol, it says that they're going to bring a situation upon us that is so horrific that we're going to beg them to fix it. Now, what can they fix the easiest? What do they have the most control over? Money. collapse the economic system via a false flag attack, and guess what? You have a replay that'll make the depression of 1929 seem like a picnic. And they've set it up to the tune on the derivatives market. The world derivatives market has over $700 trillion at risk. $700 trillion, of which 220 trillion is assigned to the largest banks in the United States. Seem to be led by, let's see, Wells Fargo, Chase, what is it? Chase Bank, the Bush Cabal Bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, it actually is, Bank of America, Mellon, Bank of New York, which is the Roosevelt family's bank. That's the oldest bank in America, actually. All of these big major banks, Goldman Sachs, they're all at risk for a total combined amount of $220 trillion. Bail that out. So, there either has to be a system set up where you have a forgiveness of debt on a worldwide basis and say, hey, scrap this and let's go forward. Or you're going to have just such a constant chaos that you'll have total social breakdown. Now, the plan that's laid out within the protocol just so happens to say, well, we'll come to the rescue and we'll satisfy the mobs to get us on our side. Control the food, control the people. So now, guess what? If we have an economic collapse between now and the end of the year, and all indications are very strong that it could very well happen between now and the well, you better plan on an alternative food source, because there's only 3 days worth of food that you can get out of your local supermarket. And after that, it's every man for himself, and who knows what the dollar's going to buy or what you can buy with your dollar. Those people on a fixed income are going to get hit the worst. Now, this isn't me talking. This isn't biblical prophecy. This is economics. This is what the economists are warning of, and there's the cracks are going to start in the derivative way right down to us. And that's when they're going to turn around and do what they did to Greece and Cyprus and Spain and all the other, and Italy. They finally turned it off there before it got much further. But we'll see the same thing happen here, essentially, where they'll just reach into the bank account and snatch out so much and say, thank you. That's
So what you're saying is something like
we're
this
setting up for it.
Is just a part of the setup for the 5 signs leading to Armageddon. And we were talking about it earlier in an earlier broadcast. This being 2013, that really is. We're talking about something that takes place over 2013 through 2017.
And we're facing the very start of it here.
Yeah.
Or could be shortly. That they have everything set up in an economic fashion where they can collapse the economy real quick. It's like from so many different sides that all you need is one, quote, natural disaster or a terrorist attack, and the United States is on martial law, and that is going to send ripples through the world economy in no time flat. And we keep on seeing these events, such as the one that happened today, where at one time they were reporting that the whole city of Washington, D.C. was on lockdown. So, practice drill, real life scenario, Manchurian candidate, I don't know what to tell you.
And Washington, D.C. is one of the 3 New World Order control states of the planet, the other 2 being London and Rome. So exactly. This is like what happened in London on 3/11 when they had the false flag in the London subways.
Could very well be something along that sort of line.
So they're targeting Washington now.
First Boston, where the whole movement started. That's where America got its freedom movement from. And now, on a day that the Boston Marathon was run, a holy event, we had a bombing event that took place and captured the whole world, interestingly enough.
Now, of course, it's early speculation, but this might be a move by the New World Order because the anti-Zionists were successful in stopping the attack on Syria. And the attack on Syria may have been intended as an early escalation, attempted escalation, up into a confrontation around Damascus, around Syria, as between Russia, China, UK, France, and US, which is certainly biblical. And so now that move happened by tossing it back to the U.S. Congress, where there were enough people running 99-1 that there was a quickie run, a quick play, and said we've got to get some false flag terror going here in Washington. Let's hit the Washington Navy Yard.
It could very possibly be.
I'm just trying to think. Why now? This seems to me much more like a reaction.
Well,
from their defeat. They're trying to get the fear momentum back because we, the forces of light, stopped them.
That could very well be. And collectively, quantitatively, it's hard to say how many people can be part of a change of mindset. But boy, the more people that you have that work toward a mindset of peace and love and put themselves in that vibration, obviously, the more positive of a situation you're going to have, regardless of what it is. If everybody all of a sudden stops saying, everybody stops saying, let's bomb Syria, and say, okay, well, how can we help Syria? How can we help the Syrian people? That was me. Sorry, I gestured and my pinky touched the keypad. It just happened to blink me out there for a second. But if we said, how can we love our neighbor instead of blow them off the damn map, we would have an instant different paradigm, wouldn't we?
Right.
Instantly, that paradigm would change in a heartbeat, instantaneously.
Now, one hypothesis could be that we have jumped timelines to a positive timeline, and that no matter how hard they try, they can't get Armageddon off the launch pad. Is that something that you've considered? And that's a serious question.
Alfred, there's only one person that I know of who figured out the loophole that's necessary in order to stop the event of Armageddon from happening. And that's you. You figured out the only loophole. And there's both that loophole is played out actually as a passion play in the book of Joshua.
Wow.
And it's played out, or it's actually spoken about by Jesus when he's saying, hey, if you're going to be attacked by a number that you can't handle, a force that's too big, isn't it a good idea to sue for peace?
Right.
So if you could get the paradigm to change to where we would lay down our weaponry and start to treat this planet in a more, to use a term, holistic manner, and get away from the petrodollar and from the nuclear radiation, you could change the paradigm, but their paradigm is this stupid 2045 extinction of the biological human paradigm. And who's going to be able to afford to have a copy of themselves made so they can live indefinitely? There's only one problem. I don't know if they figured out how to get the soul out of your body and into a machine, because I don't think that's possible. Once the soul's out of your body, it takes someone else to put it into something. It takes God or Yahuwah or Yahweh to put it wherever that soul is going to go back to. Or we go to him. Ask anybody that's had a near-death experience. Sooner or later, that great white light always shows up. And we seem to be headed in that direction with that experience. So we're all connected, but it's it's our soul energy which also connects to each other. So the more people that will start to say, hey, I see what I don't want to sound corny, but peace in Syria, picturing peace in your own neighborhood, peace in your own household. You start, what can you affect the most? Peace within your own person. Develop the peace within your own person, then the love starts to flow, and then we connect to the love with those of others around us, and it becomes a really, really, really terrible vicious cycle. We wind up loving all those people around us. God forbid if that should ever happen. Of course, I'm being facetious, but you see how that could be catching, and love conquers fear. The fear paradigm is gone. So if you don't have a fear paradigm, you can't keep people in the reactive state where they can't relax and step back and say, hey, I love you. We all look for the criminal. We all say, oh, let's go get him. Let's go. We turn into this mob mentality, and it's a proven fact. The larger the mob grows, the lower the IQ becomes. That's just the way it works. You want the people to do virtually anything, get them into a mob and fill them up with mob mentality. Religion's been doing it with people for years, and then going out and telling them to burn Bible readers at the stake.
Right. So I'm trying to get an understanding of whether currently you, Peter Kling, think that we're headed toward Armageddon or not.
Oh yeah, we're headed toward it. It's just how hard we hit it is another question. Mm-hmm. And the more people that can become awakened, here's the whole thing, Alfred. Right now, if they collapse the system, we know the next step to get us out of a collapsed system is to turn around and to dream up of a world system, seeing it'll probably be a worldwide collapse, but to put a world system in place that'll fix it. And if you forgive all debt under that new world order system, hey, you want to scratch the mortgage off of your house and just throw it away? We'll fix that for you. How many people would buy into that? You don't want to pay taxes anymore? Shh, we fix that for you. We give you a utopian society where all you have to do is work for the government and worship us because we love you. And we're going to sacrifice you if you don't. So, that's the paradigm that they're playing. Of course, they don't tell us that they love us. They try to envelop us in a state of fear and make examples out of countries and peoples and their lives in order to keep us in fear, because that's what they want us. Like I said, God forbid we should ever move over and out of that state of fear and into a state of love. That would be, we could change the world. But here we are, and we're facing a setup. If this goes down badly and they collapse the system, look for a new world order to come out of it. That's pretty much what they've already told us what their plan. Out of that new world order, they're going to bring back some sort of peace and security to the world. While they are declaring peace and security, they may finance the whole thing off the back of the church. Remember, there's still an arrest warrant out for the Pope and the Queen both, interestingly enough. The old Pope and the new Pope, I understand now. So there's an arrest warrant out by the common law court in Brussels that's supposed to be served. So now they have legal ground to go against one of their own should they decide to do that. So when I say they, I'm talking about the United States and England using legal matters in order to destroy the Vatican, or it would actually be the New World Order, which is now a people's government, to exercise the people's will upon religion. Oh, what a crazy idea. Really? What happened to religion after the Bolshevik Revolution? They shut down the churches, rounded up the Christians, put them in gulags, and executed them. Historic fact. Yeah, that's where Nazi Germany got the great idea of, wow, if the Jewish take over, the Jews who claim that they are, but are not, but are lying, the ones who belong to the synagogue of Satan, if they were capable of doing that to Christians during the Bolshevik Revolution, Nazi Germany had to step back and say, what are they capable of doing here to the Germans? Let's get the jump on them and let's round them all up and put them let's round up their own people and put them into concentration camps. The Holocaust now, but the Holocaust involved 6 million people. They stopped counting the Russian death camps after 1955. Some people believe that as many as 100 million people have been put to death in Russia since it turned to communism over the regimes that were put into place. So that's a lot of people. I mean, that makes Hitler look like a choir boy.
Right. So though, what you're saying is that inevitably, this system, this New World Order system now, even though it initially brings on a kind of an artificial peace on Earth, is going to promote a global world war.
It might not necessarily promote a global world war, but let's take a look at the scenario. You pass, and the United Nations already has the provisions in place to do this. This isn't going to take some whole brand new organization. This is just the propping up of the United Nations and giving it teeth. Remember, let's stay on track of these wild beasts. There's actually one more wild beast, and interestingly enough, this is the one that, well, a great description of what seems to be the Vatican riding it. The eighth king turns on this whore of Babylon, eats her fleshy parts, and completely destroys her with fire. Now, again, it's a seven-headed beast. It has 10 horns. So you have the 7 world powers represented. What's very interesting is that there are 10 monarchies of Europe, 10 royal houses, which are controlled by the Vatican. And hence you have a scarlet-colored wild beast. Those same 10 houses are giving support to the United Nations and the Agenda 21. It's the royals of Europe which are essentially controlling what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
You know, look at the House of Windsor during the Second World War. Wasn't it Prince Edward who was promoting Nazism? If I have my princes correctly, it was one of the royals who was very, very favorable to the Nazi cause, and he was tailed the whole time that he was here in the United States to see if what contacts that he would make, and to see his whole disposition. And they didn't want him to get into any sort of a Nazi propaganda situation where he was promoting his cause. It's all part of history. The royals step back. Hey, go fight. They send the commoners to war. It's the governors and the landowners essentially that go to war, while the rulers of this world step back in their little palaces or their deep underground military bunkers and watch everybody else slug it out. They get rich off of it. They come out and they're like scavengers. They come out when everything's destroyed, and they finance it and rebuild it back up and put the whatever country they're rebuilding under greater financial stress. Is Iraq any better off today than it was 15 years ago?
So what's on the other side of this?
Well, here we have this situation. Now, I want to point something out before we get off of this destruction of religion. Think about the religious fanatics of the world, okay? And when I say for religious fanatics, I don't just mean the people in the Middle East or in the Far East. I'm talking about the evangelical born-again Christian movement as well. Anybody who can be considered, oh, well, I'm ready to go to war for my country and my religion. Well, that's all well and good, but didn't Jesus say that you should love your neighbor as you do yourself? That kind of negates the war part, doesn't it? So if you're a Christian, you really shouldn't be at war. And interesting, if you're a true Muslim, you shouldn't be at war. But you've got these extremists that are ready to kill. So now shut down your local neighborhood church. And how long do you think it's going to take for an uprising against the New World Order or against the law which closed down the church? Now people say, oh, it'll never happen. But it did in Russia, and it can again. And probably most likely will, based on the prophecies. In the streets. And that's a really serious concern. So it's the destruction of religion that gains the New World Order total control. And going back to the Protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion, they have a whole chapter on we shall destroy God. The United Nations already has its official religion invented. They've been working on it since the 1950s, and it most closely represents what's being taught, quote, in the New Age movement. But it's a combination, from what I understand, of American Indian spirituality and Buddhism, because they want the people to care for the earth, to have a connection with the earth. Isn't that interesting for a new religion on a totalitarian government? So there's change. Now, this may sound precedent, and we have historical precedent right to the point of what we're seeing with comets being messengers of doom, so they say. And we have an event that can be used any way that they want. You know, Alfred, what do you think? You have a perfect opportunity here to pull off whatever event you want, be it from space, biological, tsunami, whatever.
I mean, with Comet Ison.
Yeah.
Well, there's a group on Facebook that I'm administrator of called 2013 Dual Sun Mystery, and there's an astronomer in New Zealand there named David Gregg, and he has done some fairly substantial analyses compiled with other astronomers, and has deconstructed a lot of the memes around Comet Ison to where he believes it's just an ordinary comet. So,
thank you. You know, I would totally agree on that.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's an ordinary comet.
Yeah.
I've thought this from the very beginning, but it's going to be one of those, you know, was it 2 trips ago, Halley's Comet, the Earth actually flew right through Halley's Comet. Hey, guess what? We're still here. But people thought it was going to be the end of the world back then. If you look at the events, you know, you read the newspaper clippings, and people with this is it. We're going to be raptured. We're going to be. Hey, here we are over 100 years later, and we're all still here, and we're facing a very similar event. And so, but now you've got all the psyops, which is built around a probably very ordinary comet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's why I'm saying we need to watch this as a trigger. Go ahead.
Sure. And there are probably a whole series of triggers that are embedded over the next 4 years through this system. And could you give a summary statement of what's going to happen over the next 4 years, just so people can follow that great overview and then have that so that they can read the incoming through that structure? I, for one, find that very useful to have overviews.
Yeah, and generally, you know, to say that, oh, this is going to happen on such and such a date is really difficult, because, I mean, hey, the guy that was supposed to push the button didn't wake up in time.
Yeah.
Whatever the case might be. But if you know what they're working toward, and you have the scriptural prophecies to back it up, We know they're working toward a one world government. You don't need scripture to back that up anymore, but it's nice that it was written 2,000 years ago for our edification. We were told, or we know that they are manipulating the weather. We know that with chemtrails. We know that with HARP. We know that they're probably responsible for a lot of earthquakes. So they're manipulating what is going on, which maybe John saw the results of these things. He certainly seemed to see the result of the BP oil disaster, Revelation 8, 8, and 9. I saw something like a burning mountain being thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea was turned to the blood of a dead man. What do we see? It looked like this red muck floating on top of the ocean. A third of the souls died, and a third of the boats were wrecked, and that's exactly what happened. A large portion of the wildlife died, and about a third of the fishing industry along the Gulf Coast was wrecked. So you see these things, it adds evidence to. It's like, going back to that fig tree, when in the spring you start to watch the buds on any tree and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then finally one day they go and they open, and spring's here, and then you got a flower, so what's next is fruit, and then the fruit grows on the tree, and you know that the summer's progressing, and then when that fruit is ripe and starts to fall off the tree, the fall is here, and it is indeed the autumn of the year.
Right.
So, we have to look at these things now. We know that they're calling for a new world order. We know they want to get rid of religion. There's already a lawsuit standing there, so they have the opportunity to do it. We know they want total control, and they want total suppression, essentially. Total control over the earth. We don't own anything. It's a totally socialistic government. We know this. We got the Bushes to back it up. We've got the Rothschilds. We've got the agenda of the rich and famous for eugenics. We know their plan, and it matches pretty much what it says in the scriptures that these things would happen. So when we see if we're prepared for a change, we'll see this happen. Now, let's look at who is doing this, though. There's some very interesting scriptures, and they all kind of tie together with a future event, which may be actually something tied to Nibiru or Planet X. Is it out there? I've seen evidence to say that it is. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, it's passed by already. I've heard them say Comet Ison is Planet X. Watch the skies. You'll know when it's getting close. Marshall Masters did his video some time back and said, hey, we got about 2.5 years out, which would seem to make sense and fit the timeline. If they cause a collapse this fall, we have some significant celestial events aligning starting in April of 2014. And so now we see that these celestial events might actually be harbingers or foretellers of an occulting, so to speak, and that new world order coming to power. Pay attention. We'll see what's going on. We need to be prepared. Are they lying to us? Are they telling us the truth? I don't know. We need to be prepared because I know what the prophecies are saying. The whole is to remove the satanic reptilian system which is controlling this planet. And that's what Armageddon is all about. We know they're going to spring it on us. We don't know exactly when. We've got pointers, we've got signs, we've got people who are waking up all the time, but we know it's coming. But what happens after it's here? Well, it's not the end of the world. Now, if this Planet X Nibiru thing comes around, it'll be the end of the infrastructure of this world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end of us. We could see an alien invasion, which how many people want to see disclosure? How many people have been talking about, especially with Comet Ison coming by, allegedly being a biosphere? Okay, whatever. I'll listen to all arguments and we'll work out and see which ones make the most sense. But you got to ask, which ones are going to be turned into black flag events? What's disinformation? What's real information? And boy, the line gets blurred in a lot of cases. But here's the thing. Regardless, I spent all these years studying the Bible scientifically, and I'm thinking, how do you teach this to the masses? How do you take 35 years of research with an additional 20 years of education and compress it all down into a book and say, here, it's all there. The history, where we came from, what we're doing here, why we are here, the future that we have facing us, these 5 signs that are coming. There's actually a few more signs involved there, including one that could very well be Nibiru, Planet X. Being prepared is key. And I don't have a religious message. I don't have, join the Church of Jesus Christ and what's happening now. I don't have that. I'm a scientist. I'm not a minister. I'm telling you to prepare. The government's preparing. But we can get through this, and we can get through this very easily if we stay in the state of love and don't give in to the fear. And it goes right back, to put it into simplest terms. Jesus gave us those simplest terms. Here it is. Love Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah, God, the great I am, source, whatever you would like to use, which is the origin of all true love. Whatever you wish to do, the greatest commandment, or whatever name you wish to use, the greatest commandment is to love that entity. For me, I'm comfortable with Yahweh, to love Yahweh with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as you do yourself. That changes the parameters around our very lives, because now we're not out to get the guy because he flipped us off going down the highway. Have a good day, buddy. Sorry I had a bad stress. I would have liked to have had that spot too, and you didn't have to go cut me off. We can put ourselves in a different mindset. We don't have to live in fear. We can relax. We can look at it and say, yep, okay, probably another false flag. I think I'll buy another few more pounds of rice and some beans and maybe some tuna fish this week. Whatever the case is, I'm not saying go build an underground bunker and you got a store. No, because we're told also to love our neighbors. But now we're also told to give a message. And it's the message that this perfect human with perfect DNA gave when he was on the earth. And that was not just to love our neighbors, but he said that his kingdom, basically, among his dying words before he was sentenced to death anyway, he said, my kingdom is not part of this world. But he told his followers to go forth and tell the nations that his kingdom would be part of this world. So now we've got the current paradigm, which is ruled by satanic Luciferian people who would rather see us dead and have the biological end of the human race planned, controlled by some extraterrestrial force, perhaps. And you have the story of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords of the universe, multiverse indeed, who is coming back to finish the job he did about 100 years ago and to destroy the satanic influence on this planet. Now, we know this paradigm doesn't work. We know this paradigm has brought us close to death with things like Fukushima, GMO foods, chemtrailing. Research it. If you don't know about these things, go research it. This is the new paradigm. Now, one's got to go away before we can get the other. So how do we remove the evil paradigm and keep those who are loving each other as family? It's like I say, we are facing the extinction of the human race, but in its death throes, it will give birth to the human family. And so those who survive Armageddon, or the destruction of this paradigm of evil, will be born essentially as the human family on the other side. When we get to the other side, what's it say? Interesting. We're supposed to get our DNA repaired. We were supposed to become just like that guy 2,000 years ago who walked around the earth with perfect DNA and could cure people who are hurt, feed people with leftovers, we're supposed to become that person, interestingly enough. And that's exactly what it says happens when you get to Revelation, the 21st chapter. It says that, when you read the story, when Jesus was baptized, a dove fell upon Jesus as God's spirit, and a voice was said, "This is my son, the beloved, whom I have chosen." Well, when you get to Revelation chapter 21, all house falls on us. It says the tent of God will be with mankind. And then from there, we go on to explore bigger and better things than just planet Earth. It's very difficult for people to think of their own divinity, call it that. But here's a fact. Every woman born on this planet as a healthy young child is born with about 400,000 eggs in her ovaries. It would take over 35,000 years to pass over 400 or approximately 400,000 eggs. Why were humans given such a fantastic reproduction system? That sounds like a reproduction system that you would have if you were populating planets. Interesting. And men never stopped making sperm. So just to use the reproductive system that humans have, passing one egg a month, you got to live 35,000 years. If you go back to the original story that's written in Genesis about Eve, she'd be approximately 6,000 years old now and less than 20% through her reproductive cycle. Think about that. But we see, we keep tracking Earth years. We only live to be about 80, 90 years. And anything beyond that, oh, well, you have special power. And the oldest man on the face of the earth is like maybe 120 years old. And anything beyond that, we all become very skeptical about. Yet the biblical record talks about people who live to be over 900 years old. It's all a matter of genetics. And it's the genetics which keep on cropping back up. And so it will be the genetics of the woman's seed which will be crushing the serpent's seed in the head, bringing it to an end. And the children of mom will be under mom's rule, I guess, at that point. Think about it. We all talk about, oh, well, God's this and God's that. Wait a minute. Whose woman is it? You see, it's the heavenly woman. It's the woman of the other 7 dimensions which brought life into this dimension. Some people might refer to it as Gaia. You see, we have the physical universe, and which is actually 10 dimensions deep. We only get to see 3 of it, but it's 10 dimensions deep. And scientists will tell you that the universe is a living organism. That means it's alive on all the dimensions. And just as we are alive as a body, what keeps us alive is our soul, our life force and energy. And it's that soul that connects us all together. It connects me to you, Alfred, and you to the people who you associate with, and the people who I associate with in our families. That is what connects us all together. Now, if we exercise the woman's gene, the woman's seed, that genetic end of the structure, you see where I'm going with this? We'll be going in one way while the serpent seed goes in the other way, and we get a positive timeline and a positive paradigm. It's not that complicated. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of this world system. If you could remove the banking cabals and the military cabal and all of these people, the religious end of it, if you could get rid of all of it and just leave people on the face of the planet by themselves, we'd work it all out.
I'm sure.
Just remove the evil and let the love take over, and we'll work it out by ourselves.
And that's the significance of the coming period that we're entering. Well, we've actually been going at it for over 90 minutes now, and we've hit that magical 90-minute mark. And I wondered if there are any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the viewers with.
Oh, absolutely, Alfred. You know, the first thought is, look, we covered end time scenarios, and you need good evidence, good proof, and a good understanding of what's going on here in order to get through this system. I told you what the absolute necessary part is. But to understand the full part, you really need to read Letters to Earth. You can survive Armageddon. We can. This isn't about lock and load. This is about love and light. You know, I'll tell you something. And Alfred, I know you've seen this. This was the original paradigm. And I'll try to get that out of light. This was the original paradigm that I was showing for surviving Armageddon, the destruction of the Earth. And I thought, wow, that's really too short-sighted, and it totally supports the wrong idea in this, because, you know, yeah, we could survive this, and it's very symbolic in what I put there, but wait a minute. That's the new cover. That's the new cover.
Excellent.
You see, this is what we have going on now, in Fukushima and stuff, and right along the Letters to Earth, we have the dark rift of the Milky Way, and this is what's on the other side. Now we're passing through that dark rift. We've got the aligning of the precession of the equinoxes, and so we've got the aligning which is taking place. We're crossing over that. That could be one of the reasons why we have so many situations going on here on Earth on a natural level. But you see, when we get to the other side, that's what we get. That's what we get. A rehabilitated Earth. And Earth is just the starting point. Earth is only where it begins. A long time ago, a very old man looked in my eyes and he said, "Your future is in the stars." And I'm going to say the same thing to you. Your future, indeed, the future of all of our children, is in the stars. Earth is just the starting place. There are billions of galaxies just like the Milky Way, with billions of stars just like Sun, with billions of planets just like Earth. But this will never get off. The paradigm we have here will never be allowed to leave. Earth is a prison planet. The new paradigm, when we are brought to that point of perfection, when our DNA is brought into perfection, we will be able to move on. And it's going to take some time. The best evidence we have of this is, supposedly we're going through the photon belt, and we have a 2,000-year trip. So 1,000 years from now, we might be having this conversation someplace else in the multiverse. We can never tell. But if we keep our lives simple, stay focused on, hey, there's more beyond this. The world does not end. Keep yourself in a state of love and love others. This is all going to be about bringing the human family together. The woman's gene will coalesce. The serpent seed will become extinct. That's pretty much it. And that's the path that they've chosen for themselves with things like the 2045 initiative. They've chosen to become extinct. Choose life. Read Letters to Earth, because we all can survive Armageddon, and there's plenty of room in the universe. Love and blessings, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Good night.
Good night, Alfred, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.